All right, welcome to another live inside Premiere Pro. I'm back at home from the road with another live, and this one you guys are definitely going to want to stay tuned for. So elevate your color correction inside Premiere Pro. We are going to kind of go over the footage that you see on screen and pretty much have it ready. We're not going to go color grading. You guys know the steps. It's color correction first. This was shot in let's put it right here. This one was shot in log. So this is how it is, just raw, desaturated. And we are going to color correct it first, and then I'm going to color grade it later. Not on this video. This video is strictly color correction. So again, elevate your color correction inside Premiere Pro. So we are going to start by, I'm going to show you, hold on, let me check my audio levels. Let me make sure it's not peaking right now. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Too loud, too loud. There we go. How about like that? Is that better? All right, cool. So we're going to start by um, moving everything into Rec 709. So I have a LUT by Cinecolor, and we're going to drop that right into the footage, and then we're going to take it from there. All right, so there it is. As you can see, the magentas are all the way up. From the scopes, the RGB parade, we got the other ones in here. We got the waveform, and we got the vector scope, right? And you could tell from the vector scope right there that the skin levels are kind of all the way turned up into the red, right? So we're going to start by fixing the exposure first, all right? So again, I'm going to do it on the adjustment layer. We're not going to do it on the clip, so that way we can preserve everything, all the colors, and not damage anything. And if we need to start from scratch, we can go ahead and do that, all right? So we're going to go from, start with the adjustment layer, and let's fix the exposure. So we're not going to touch the actual exposure itself. You can tell right here from the RGB. Let me actually just use the, well, actually, let's just leave it like that. RGB parade. We're going to look at all these, the red, green, and blues. They're kind of reaching a little bit into the highlights. As you can tell, those lights in the background right above the books. That's what's kind of hitting that peak right there. But what we're going to do is kind of bump up a little bit of the whites. All right. So we're just going to bump them up just a little bit right there. And we're going to see that up there. Just a little bit brighter. And you can see kind of like that red reaching up there. We're also going to kind of, the highlights, let's turn them down a bit, just see what it looks like. See right there, not too much. That's all the way there, kind of like there. And we're going to actually leave those at 0. So let's see like that. The shadows, everything looks pretty dark on that end, but let's just bring it up just a tad. Just a tad, just kind of show a little bit. Let's go all the way so you see what it looks like. That's too washed out, no blacks. We don't want that. We just want a little bit of that. Just a little tiny bit, just to kind of show a little bit of the sweater, what I'm wearing right there. I don't know why I'm making that face. Let's just leave it like that. That's fine. Skin tones, again, a little bit magenta, but we're not going to worry about that right now. All right, let's see the blacks right here. We could crush them all the way down, or we could bring them up right there above that number 10. So usually you'll see that like about, I would say like 90 on the top for the highlights, and then 10 for the blacks. And let me just throw this caveat out there. This is by no means the absolute 100% way you should do everything. Everybody has their own workflow, and I'm just showing you what Premiere Pro can do. So if you don't like it, well, go ahead and do it yourself. Cool. So let's keep going. All right. Daniel Wong from TikTok. Hello. Hey, what's going on, man? Shout out. Shout out to Daniel Wong. All right, cool. So let's keep going. Again, if you don't know or you're not familiar with what these levers are doing, make sure and don't be afraid to go all the way to the extreme, from one extreme to the other, so you can see how it works. So for example, I did that with the highlights before. Let's go with the contrast. Oh, I didn't drag that. There you go, all the way towards the right. And as you can see, everything's being crushed on the RGB. And then all the way to the other side, everything is washed out because that's the contrast. And again, this is the universal, the general contrast. Oh, let's go put it at 0. Okay, so it's not by any means gonna do it kind of like locally. It's more of a global thing. I really like to mess with the contrast on the curves, the tone curve right here. This is where I really like to mess with the contrast, see if it's like, too much or too little, and kind of just adapt it to that end. Like for example, I see a little bit of the mid tones are a little bit more for on the blacks, on the darker side, so I would probably just kind of like boost this up just a little bit more. But as you can see, it's also crushing the blacks a tad, so giving it that contrast. But here's where I would probably fix that. And let's say, for example, the highlights on this, let's go a little bit up right here, but you can see it's going to bring up all those right there. All right, so let's just kind of go back to that. There, let's go right there. Let's go back to basic correction. All right, cool. Yeah, so I would probably stay away from the exposure right now. If you need to bring up the exposure just because it's underexposed, I'd probably make another adjustment layer and kind of work on the whites, pull them up a little bit on that, or punch them in, because it really, you don't want to add that extra noise if you don't need it, right? Assuming you did everything correctly in camera. All right, cool. Enough of that. All right, so now what we're going to do is go back to the curves. Let's bring that down. See if I crush it right there, or I could just kind of bring them up just a little bit right there. I could bring down the midtones, or I could punch them up a little bit more. Kind of like that. Right there. And again, if I go a little bit to the left, it's a little bit more for the darker ones, and then a little bit more for the highlights on this end. So if I was right here in the middle, I'd probably just punch them in a little bit like that. Kind of like that look right there. And then the highlights, I'll probably just play with it a little bit more. Go this way, go that way. You also want to check the fall off on the skin with the highlights. So just make sure you're aware of that. And obviously, I chose this one because the highlights, you always kind of, it's kind of like a difficult one to do because of the lights that are hitting me in the back. And also there's a light hitting me on my face. So kind of want to balance that out a little bit. All right, cool. Let's leave it like that. And now what we want to do is, when we got a little bit of the exposure kind of going on there, and I'm just going to add a little bit of everything just because we're here. So let's add a little bit of the highlights, just a bit, just a touch right there, not too much. I'm going to blow them out too much. What I'm going to do is now move on to the white balance, right? So we could do it manually right here with the temperature, kind of a little bit warmer, or mess with the tint a little bit, right there, or the saturation, deset, all that jazz. Let's actually bring down the saturation, but I'm not going to do it on this one, all right? I'm actually going to go somewhere else. So let's check it out. I'm going to use the dropper, and I know I have a white shirt, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the white and click on that. Boom. And that's going to kind of adjust the color a little bit based on me telling the program that the true white is my shirt, all right? And then I can just kind of tweak it a little bit right there, right? If I want it a little bit cooler, take away a little bit more magenta. So let's say, for example, I want to take a little bit of that magenta out. Not too green, but just like right there. It's not too bad. Let's see right there, just a little bit right there. not too much, a little bit of that. And then just like a little bit more, a cooler one. I don't want it to be too red. Let's probably go right there, not too much. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the creative, and I'll see right here. And obviously, here's where the LUT is, the Rec 709. So what I can do is actually bring down the intensity of it. If I don't want it too much, I just can bring that down. It's at 45% right there. You'll see it's more of a raw log right there. Or I could bring it up a little bit more, make it a little bit stronger. But I'm going to keep it at right there in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of desaturate it just a tad. Nothing too crazy, but if you want to see what it looks like, it's right there, a little bit gray-ish. I kind of want to just leave it like maybe right there, going by the skin tone. And then with the vibrance, I'm going to pull it up just a tad. Nothing too crazy. What that does is it's actually the vibrance will leave the skin tones alone and bring up the punch in the colors of the rest of the image a little bit more. Okay, and again, this is more of the grading a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to show that part of that in the process that I do as far as like white balance and all that. All right, let's go back to the color correction. And that right there, let me actually punch in the whites just a little bit more. I'll go by the RGB scale right here. Let's do a little bit more on the whites, kind of like touching it right there. So the red's touching a little bit, the green's touching a little bit more. And if you ever want to kind of go specifically into a color and, kind of fix that, as far as the red, green, and blue goes, you could go into the curves and right here. So that's the tone curve, and we could actually go into pick just the red, just the green, or just the blue, and then punch that up. So for example, I have the blue right there. I'll do just 3 points. You don't have to do those 3 points. It's just my preference. And let's say I want to bring up the highlights of that just a little bit, and you'll see that punch up a little bit like that. See how that looks like. You know what I mean? Or I could do the midtones a little bit more. And again, I'm going by the RGB. And obviously, it's going to look nuts if you know what I mean, if I just go like that all the way up there. Let's go back to what it was before. Like that. Let's say the midtones. I'll probably just punch that up a little bit more if I was like right there. Nothing too crazy. If I wanted to go that way. Anyways, wait. Go back to the curves right there. Basic correction. All right, cool. Right there. Let's see. And obviously, I could go and fix the skin tones on the curves as well. Hue versus luma or hue versus hue, and kind of tweak that in there a little bit. All right. So let's say right there, I feel like it's pretty good for a color correction. Just kind of exposing the exposures a little bit. It's pretty good. Not too bad. I could, of course, tweak this a little bit more. But yeah, I think that color correction is not bad. Let's just go into the skin tones because it's kind of bothering me a little bit. Go to curves. Let's go in the hue versus hue. And what I'm going to do is pick the dropper, and I'm going to go in my skin right there. Boom. All right. And it's going to show me right here in the middle where it's at. And let's say I'm going to go a little bit towards the right, a little bit down because I want it to be not as. And I want you to take a look at the vector scope and see what it's doing and where it's going. Exactly where it is, where it's punching towards. You kind of want it to be on that scale right there in that middle, on that line that you see, which is this right here. And that's like the skin tone kind of perfect line. Let's go to hue versus saturation. Same skin tone. And it'll just saturate it a little bit more, and you'll see it right there. Or I could just desaturate it just a tad to kind of bring that in a little bit. I don't want it towards the yellow. Let's say if I want it this way, you can kind of see where it's going. Right there, it's going right there, or if it's too much. And let's say I just want it like right there. Boom. And it's just, see how much better it is? It looks like it's kind of hinting a little bit towards yellow on there, but I think I did that from here, this hue right there. There we go. Yeah. And then that is the image right there. This right here. Boom. Not bad. Not bad at all. And then, that's kind of like just the beginning of what that is. And I feel like I want to punch it in a little bit more, man. I don't know. I'm going to go into tone curve and just kind of like bring that down just a tad. Bring these up just a little bit right there. Just kind of separate that. Not too much. I want to give it that kind of punchiness. And again, I don't want to do it too much because on the color grade, I might go a little bit more towards the darker. It all kind of depends on exactly how I want the finishing look to go. But as a first kind of pass, I think this is pretty good. You can tell there's a little bit of halation on the highlights in the back, and that's just because I used the Cinebloom filter on the lens that I was using. So don't worry about that too much. That was kind of stylized just like that. I didn't add that halation. But yeah, so let's take a look at, what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually, let me put it this way right here. And I kind of want to show like a before and after. Let's go to creative. And let's say that I want to go for, let's do a reset of that one. And I'll do the following. So this is how it was. I'm sorry. I want to make sure that everything, I think the curves is still there. Let me actually take that off. Oh, wait, I can't do that because then it's going to be all that. Let's just go to 0 less. Let's go to 100 on that. And let's make believe that the curves, I didn't add any curves or anything like that. All right, so that's what it was, just me dropping the Rec 709 LUT on it, and this is what it was after we color corrected it. All right, so it's, it's a little bit different. It looks a little bit more, my skin looks a little bit more brighter. Well, I would say like desaturated from the orange. So as you can see, look at that. All of that, it almost looks like I'm super red magenta. And look at the vector scope and the RGB. And so that's the original one. And then this is the us color correcting it. Everything brought up. All right. Yeah, I hope you guys liked exactly what you saw. Next time, we're going to go into the making sure that all the footage that you have, all the different scenes. This was a vlog that I did from a trip where I was just at, and I have a couple of different scenarios, different lighting. So I want to make sure that all the footage that I have is uniform. That way, when I color grade on a different adjustment layer, I'm making all these changes globally and not locally. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions. Thank you for all the support. Make sure you give a like, comment, share if you like what you saw, and I will see you guys next time. And remember, this isn't anything set in stone. This is just my style and what I know, what I want my footage to look like at the end. So the more you film, the better you become. All right.